Three new bills introduced by Boris Johnson's government are putting our democratic freedoms at risk. Together, the bills form some of the most sweeping and brazen attacks on people's freedoms that our country has ever seen. But these attacks are being hidden within 918 pages of legislation and behind other positive reforms contained in the bills. So what are the three bills? First, we have the Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Bill, which has now passed through the House of Commons. Next, there is Priti Patel's Nationality and Borders Bill. And finally, and potentially the most dangerous, is the Elections Bill, which has just been introduced to Parliament. These bills are written in such a way as to disguise the attacks on our democracy that they contain. Each one contains some good things, designed to make us and MPs think the government is acting to protect our democracy. But they all also contain dangerous limits to our democratic and human rights. Take the policing bill. There are worthy reforms in it, including longer sentences for domestic abuse. But underneath that are changes that could see a protester jailed for 10 years, just for being too loud. This piece of legislation seems particularly hypocritical when you consider that it was the loud and brave protests of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong that alerted the world to their injustice. And it was these protests that paved the way for the UK Home Office to offer them a visa to escape imprisonment. The second in the unholy trinity is the Nationality and Borders Bill, which Priti Patel sells as a crackdown on abhorrent human traffickers. In fact, the bill deliberately conflates legitimate asylum seekers with human traffickers. And it outlaws the very act of claiming asylum, breaking with 70 years of the Geneva Convention. There's a clear pattern forming here. Each bill uses a legitimate and popular pretext as a cloak for undemocratic intentions. The most sinister example is perhaps the Elections Bill. The headline story here has been about the introduction of mandatory voter ID. But buried in the detail are clauses that criminalise things that are fundamental to free and fair elections in the UK. The government claims the Elections Bill will protect our elections from foreign interference. Sounds good. But in reality, the bill makes it easier for tax exiles to make political donations, increasing the scope for dark money and vested interests to influence our elections. The bill will also let the Secretary of State, currently Michael Gove, to change the definition of what sort of campaigning is allowed a year before an election. Most concerning of all, the bill imposes limits on campaigners, charities and individuals carrying out activity together if it's considered to be intended to achieve a common purpose. This means groups couldn't even have a conversation about tactical voting. The bill goes so far as to allow a minister to decide if booking a meeting room might constitute a criminal offence. This might sound trivial, and it feels like it's designed to, but these are serious barriers to pursuing a healthy opposition to the government around election time. Free and fair elections, after all, are fundamental to democracy. Make no mistake, this is a democratic crisis. What these bills collectively show is that our government is arrogant enough to believe it's above accountability and scrutiny. It wants to cut off our ability to oppose it, at the ballot box, in the courts, and on the streets. But this government isn't untouchable, and we are here to prove it.